From Politico. More governments pledge to join UK and France in sending peacekeepers to Ukraine. We're at a crossroads in history, says UK Starmer. Some European leaders vow to increase defense spending. Now, this story has been going viral, and it's being framed as though the UK, France, and other countries want to deploy troops right now and ignite World War III. That's not the case. What they're saying is, in the event of a peace deal, they plan to send troops into Ukraine. So, if there is some kind of peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine and the U.S. and the West and whatever, after that, then they'll send in troops, which is they may as well be saying there will never be a peace deal. You don't say before your peace negotiations to Vladimir Putin. Imagine this. What does Putin want? We've mentioned he wants the land bridge from the Donbass region, Luhansk, Donetsk, Mariupol, Zaporizhia, etc., going down Ukraine into Crimea so he can secure and defend it and have land access. Otherwise, there's just one bridge to the east of Crimea. So, okay, Crimea is where their Black Sea fleet is based, Sevastopol. They have a major industrial port. Russia's not giving that up. They want land access to secure and defend that territory. Tell Russia right now, here's what we're going to do, Russia. We want to negotiate peace. The moment you turn around, we're going to send in troops from NATO. What do you think Putin's going to say? He's going to say, yeah, effing right. No way. Russia wants to secure this territory. Right now, it's Russia versus Ukraine. They may as well have said when France and the UK announced they will deploy troops into Ukraine upon a peace deal, they may have just said, don't do a deal with us, Putin. Don't do a deal to end the war. Because with this pledge, there is no way Putin's going to agree to a deal.
It blows my... First of all, it's stupid because it's saying he was opposing NATO expansion. And then after the peace settlement, you're going to have the very NATO expansion that started this conflict in the first place. Also, UK and France should be worrying about their own steaming hellholes of countries in Europe right now and not thinking about... Send troops into Marseille and send troops into Région in France and send troops into certain no-go zones in the UK and deal with your sexual assault gangs before you start worrying about securing a peace or starting a war after you've secured a peace. So, doctor, heal thyself, but it's also stupid. Because
I believe that the moves they made here, like with Boris Johnson, their intention is to make it appear as though they want peace while doing everything they can to sabotage it. That's why Zelensky screams at Trump. I'm exaggerating. But that's why he interrupts and cuts Trump off and insults and disrespects them. This is why they're pledging to send in troops. It basically tells Russia there will be no agreement. That's what they're saying.
It seems like they're all mobilizing. It's like a way to stop Trump. You know, when they all kind of band together to support what Trump's perceived enemy. Because it reminds me of how COVID happened. They release a bioweapon to stop Trump. In my opinion, that's what I think happened.
I concur with
Thank you. Thank you. So I think this is just part two of that, you know, the way like they've turned all this into, you know, like you were saying with Ukraine where the money's going, it's like BLM getting the money and they got mansions with it, right? All these people are profiting off of it. So that's all I see is just another way to get at Trump.
I mean, I think that there's absolutely, there are people that are motivated simply by a hatred of Trump. I do think, I mean, clearly, you know, Putin wants to take land from Ukraine. The Russians do look at Ukraine.
He gave us the whole history about it.
Yeah, you know, they do look at Ukraine as their territory.
Did you see that tweet? I think it was from Insurrection Barbie. She said, so let me get this straight. Zelensky is a hero for putting Ukraine first, but Trump is a fascist for putting America first.
Yeah.
It's got like 30,000 retweets, and everyone's like, yep.
That's it.
So you've got Democrats are like Slava Ukraini, and they don't care about America. They don't care about our borders. They don't care about our economy. You know what I really love? Let me show you this. Let me pull up Civics. I love Civics data. National economy current condition. Oh, they're so bent out of shape over this one. Here's the polling for the current economy. Let's take a look at Democrats. How do Democrats view the economy right now? Well, right before Trump got inaugurated, literally, Trump gets elected. And 50%, 51% say the economy is fairly good. 22% say very good. Donald Trump is inaugurated, and then overnight, Democrats think the economy is bad.
Well, in fairness, he is doing a lot of cutting some federal jobs, and a lot of those Democrats are federal employees. No, I just got to disagree on one thing, Tim.
I'm going to agree with that, but the polling view shifted within 1 week before Doge, for everything. Democrats immediately just went, the economy is bad now.
Yep.
I don't think Zelensky threw that hissy fit on purpose. I think he was just actually caught off guard by the change in tenor and tone of the treatment he's getting from the administration.
Yeah.
He's used to having Josh Shapiro signing their bombs for him. Like, I don't know. I want to know what Josh Shapiro was writing on those warheads. And then
It's like a book, right?
Yeah,
so
it was long. And I'll just say, I don't ever think it's appropriate to write messages on bombs. I mean, you're making light of
Yes,
weapons of war,
absolutely.
but setting that aside, I think he was genuinely caught off guard. He's used to people parading him like a hero, bringing him in front of Congress, signing his flag in American government buildings, and then he gets there and he's dressed down literally, and then not to say physically, but verbally afterwards. I think he was just seriously caught off guard.
Yeah.
He was already dressed out physically of his own doing.
That's right.
He's been showing up in a freaking like a bum. I'll wear a suit if I ever get an invite to the White House.
No. Look, I got invited to the White House and I wore this. I wore my normal thing.
Son of a bitch.
That's
Were
right.
you there? Were you negotiating a peace deal?
So they had the White House social media summit. I was the only one not wearing a suit. And my attitude very much was what makes America great is that we are not beholden to wear suits when we go into public institutions. This is a country where a homeless man can look to the most powerful politician and tell him to go screw himself. Whereas in a lot of countries you can't do this, namely like Thailand with lèse-majesté laws. That being said, when I was invited to meet the president, I went and bought a suit. I'm going to meet the president. I kept the beanie. but that was only because I was in Palm Beach. And they were like, look, Donald, the president is here. He's got a bunch of people here. If you want to meet him, you got to wear a suit. That's how we do it. I said, you got it. We bought a suit, showed up. There's a picture of me wearing a suit. And they told me, actually, the beanies do go with the suits. Did you not?
Yeah, there you go.
And then the only other time, the most dressed up I've ever been is my wedding. I wore a suit with no beanie.
Nice.
Look at that.
That's right. The president, Mr. President, with all due respect, I appreciate your work, but I'm going to wear the beanie. That being said, I'm kidding, largely. But the reason why Zelensky dressing down was so offensive is that when he went to the World Economic Forum, he wore a suit.
You don't think it's endearing that a tyrant dresses like Adam Sandler?
You realize what it's branding. Like you realize he's been branded, sold, packaged, marketed to the
Yes.
American people,
100%.
and so many have bought into this. Oh, he's such a rugged warrior. He wears that, dude. You wear a freaking suit.
Right.
People comparing him to Elon. Oh, Elon wears a baseball. Elon is not the president of a foreign country coming to do international geopolitics. He's Doge, and everybody knows that.
So everybody knows that I'm like a very anti-suit, kind of slovenly guy. When we were told by people who worked with Trump, like friends of ours who work in the Republican Party, Trump is here. There's a bunch of senators and prominent individuals. You can come. You must wear a suit. I said, yes, sir. And we went and bought one. Zelensky doesn't. He's like,
He had two buttons at least, so it was
But-
two steps up from his short.
I believe it was a reporter who called him out. Was it a reporter? There's a video.
Did
I
Vance
thought-
not say something?
The one I heard was Trump making the joke not once but twice.
Right.
Thanks for dressing up.
Oh, right,
I didn't hear
right.
anybody in the presser, but he's doing it on purpose, and it had worked. He had gotten praise for it. He'd gotten on the cover of magazines, and now it's like Dad's home. It's none of this idolatry crap. You better answer for what we're getting for the amount that we spent. You better account for where it's gone. And he can't. He won't because he's been pocketing a good portion of it.
It is a fact that let's debunk a bunch of liberal Democrat lies about this. The first is the money's not actually going to Ukraine. The money is used to manufacture weapons. We then send old weapons to them to use. Basically, we're using this to pump up our military and strengthen it, and then sending them the weapons. Let me just stress, excellent, technically the truth. We are still giving our military weapons, expertise, special forces, intelligence to Ukraine, and we still spend money on it. I don't want the U.S. government to spend money on the military-industrial complex. So I don't know why Democrats are advocating for that. But the other thing that needs to be brought up, direct funds were sent to Ukrainian companies from the United States for the purpose of building fortifications. When the war broke out near Bryansk and Kursk, I think it was, Russians were invading from the northeast, and lo and behold, Ukrainian forces were shocked to find none of the fortifications were actually built. The companies that were taking the money to build fortifications were fake shell companies that were stealing the U.S. dollars. And that is Ukraine under Zelensky's watch. That is a fact. They try every which way to make up some stupid reason why Democrats are actually in the right to defend. My favorite is they say an agreement was made that if Ukraine gave up its weapons, the United States would defend it in the event Russia invaded. First thing I say to that is, I'm a Ron Paul guy. He says one generation cannot promise the youth, the next generation. You can't do that. More importantly, however, the other agreement that was made was after the fall of East Germany. It was the United States that said NATO will not expand 1 inch eastward. So the argument that we now have to come to the defense of Ukraine because Russia has invaded an agreement, despite the fact that none of these were treaties. These were it was like a memo saying, okay, in the event. And then you have the word. So I get someone tweeting at me saying what you're saying is your country is untrustworthy because you won't defend Ukraine. I'm like, well, I don't know. I think the expansion of NATO was untrustworthy too, which then instigates and escalates the conflict. And now you're telling us we have to go and fight because NATO wanted to be in Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Ukraine. I'm not here for that.
We sign a lot of treaties that we don't hold up to, we don't use biological weapons anymore, but we still do. And
look, the
white phosphorus.
It's weird.
The Budapest Agreement wasn't a treaty. It wasn't ratified by the Senate. It wasn't an actual treaty. It doesn't have the force of a treaty. And in the Budapest Agreement, the agreement is that NATO will intervene. And it's not saying that the United States alone is going to make sure that there's no aggression against against Ukraine. It was an agreement that I believe it said either NATO or the UN. I forget because I don't have it in front of me. But it wasn't a guarantee of the same type of guarantee that Article 5 of the NATO Charter is. That's why we don't want Ukraine in NATO. Right. I think that there's a lot of countries, well, not a lot of countries, but there are a handful of countries that are very problematic being in NATO. I think Turkey being in NATO is very problematic nowadays.
Why are progressives all of a sudden pro-NATO?
It's just because of Donald Trump.
Exactly. It's all whatever Trump is against, they're for, and vice versa.
Well, I think it's mostly Donald Trump, but also I think a part of it is the fact that they're so pro-establishment because they really did have control of the government. They had control of the bureaucracy, all the USAID money, all the money that went to progressive NGOs, and all the money that went to progressive policies that had been sent overseas. All of that money went through USAID and stuff. That was something that the progressives don't want to stop because that's part of why they were so influential, not just in the United States but globally. So they don't want that to stop. So that's part of why they're so pro bureaucracy. This is the left that used to be, anti-government and supposed to be, against the man, and et cetera. Once they became the man, they're,
they used to want to defund the police. Now they're crying over FBI.
Yeah, I mean,
fired.
but the thing is, it was all a lie.
Yeah,
it was all BS.
They have no moral center.
That's true, but they were in a position of power, and just like any other group, they'll say that they're not, which is the Democrats' line. They've been saying that they're for the working class and stuff for ages and ages, all while they've literally owned all of the the impactful billionaires except for a very few handful.
Of course. I say everyone loves freedom of speech until they're the ones in positions of power, and others are using that freedom of speech to attack their position of power. I say the disloyal thing that NATO and the West might have done was overthrowing the president back in 2014 in the Maidan Revolution. The other thing, when you understand what they're doing with these new additions, I think Finland was the second to most recent addition before Sweden to NATO.
Yeah,
they're using was the most recent, I believe.
They're using Finland as a depot for arms, just like they're using it as a military prostitute to just store weapons. And they do it knowing exactly what the reaction is going to be, and it exactly justifies specifically why NATO should not be expanding and why it is an act of aggression against Russia.
And I encourage everybody out there who is unfamiliar with these territories where these countries are, look up Kaliningrad, okay? Kaliningrad. Take a look at a map of Europe. Look at Poland. Easy to find. It's pretty big. Look right to the north. Hey, what's that? There's a Russian oblast right there. What's that doing? So when they argue that once Russia takes Ukraine, they'll invade Poland, it's like Russia already has access to Poland and Lithuania in the deeply and heavily militarized oblast of Kaliningrad. Not that it's it's the best military position, but they have access to the Baltic as well. So the one thing you would fear is not Ukraine and Poland. Belarus has already allowed Russia to bring nuclear weapons in and bring in troops. Belarus is there's a very small border barrier between Belarus and Kaliningrad. So if Russia was going to move in, they'd bring a bunch of troops into Belarus, probably move through Lithuania into Kaliningrad to create a corridor which they could transport troops, and then have access to the Baltic. So these arguments, they're all nonsense. They're lying. The West, we want to shut Russia out. That's why all the Democrats and liberals and pro-war Republicans have been arguing that every Ukrainian that fights a Russian they're saying if Ukraine fights Russia, we won't have to. Basically, the people of Ukraine are cannon fodder to chuck at Russia to weaken them.
It was Tim Scott who said it during one of the presidential debates. You know, we don't have to put any boots on the soil. We don't have to spill any American blood. It's a great deal for America. And that, it really irritated me when I heard it. I'm like, that's the most disgusting thing you can possibly say, is you're using other people's children to weaken the Russian military infrastructure. And that's exactly what they're doing. That was the plan all along. Just throw in as many Ukrainian soldiers as you can. If it weakens Russia, all the better. And it's none of our blood. So good for us.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.